Maya Chen had spent her entire professional life restoring damaged art, coaxing beauty back from the edge of decay. She never imagined she would need those same skills to rebuild her own life. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Thornfield Estate's bridal suite, casting everything in soft gold. Maya stood before an ornate mirror, watching as her best friend Sophia fastened the last pearl button on her silk wedding gown. The dress was a masterpiece of Italian craftsmanship, custom-designed to complement Maya's petite frame, with delicate lace sleeves and a train that seemed to float behind her like morning mist. "You look absolutely radiant," Sophia whispered, her dark eyes glistening with tears. "Adrian's going to lose his mind when he sees you." Maya smiled, touching the diamond necklace at her throat. Adrian had presented it to her last night at the rehearsal dinner, along with a handwritten note that made her cry. 8 months ago, she had been cataloging Renaissance paintings in the museum's basement archives when Adrian Thornfield had walked into her life. He had commissioned her to authenticate and restore several pieces for his private collection, and what began as professional consultation had evolved into long dinners discussing art history, then weekend trips to galleries, then a proposal on a rooftop in Paris overlooking the city lights. The Thornfield family was Manhattan royalty, old money built on technology patents and strategic investments spanning 3 generations. Adrian's father had passed away 5 years ago, leaving Adrian as CEO of Thornfield Industries at just 28. His 2 older sisters, Victoria and Diana, had expected to inherit leadership roles, but their father's will had been clear. Adrian's vision and business acumen made him the obvious choice. Maya had met Victoria and Diana 3 times during the engagement. Each encounter left her with a subtle unease she couldn't quite articulate. They smiled at all the right moments, asked appropriate questions about wedding plans, and complimented her choices with voices smooth as honey. But their eyes remained cold, calculating, measuring her against some invisible standard she could never hope to meet. Only Adrian's grandmother, Eleanor, had welcomed Maya with genuine warmth. The 92-year-old matriarch had taken Maya's hands during their first meeting and said, "You have kind eyes and strong hands. That's more valuable than any pedigree." A knock interrupted Maya's thoughts. A staff member entered carrying an elegant white box tied with silver ribbon. "This just arrived for you, Miss Chen. From the Thornfield family." Maya's fingers trembled slightly as she opened the cream-colored card tucked beneath the ribbon. The handwriting was elegant, feminine, written in deep blue ink. "A Thornfield bride must honor our traditions. These shoes have graced every wedding in our family for 40 years. May they guide your steps into your future. Welcome to our family. Victoria and Diana." Sophia lifted the lid and gasped. "Maya, these are extraordinary." The shoes were breathtaking. Custom ivory heels adorned with intricate crystal beading that caught the light like captured starlight. They looked delicate yet expensive, exactly what Maya would expect from a family like the Thornfields. The craftsmanship was impeccable, every detail perfect. "They're beautiful," Maya breathed, lifting one from its tissue paper nest. The weight felt substantial, quality materials and expert construction. She slipped off her simple ballet flats and carefully put on the right shoe. Perfect fit. The left shoe followed, sliding on smoothly as though crafted specifically for her feet. Maya took a few experimental steps across the plush carpet, admiring how the heels made her posture straighter, more elegant, more like she belonged in Adrian's world of wealth and privilege. "Everything okay?" Sophia asked, watching her carefully. "Perfect," Maya replied, pushing down the small flutter of anxiety in her chest. "They're absolutely perfect." She had no family to walk her down the aisle. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19, leaving her to finish college on scholarships and determination. Adrian's younger brother, Marcus, had offered to escort her, and Maya had accepted gratefully. He had become like a brother over the past months, someone who understood what it meant to be underestimated by people who valued bloodlines over character. Marcus knocked softly and entered, his eyes brightening when he saw her. "Wow, Maya. Adrian's a lucky man. Are you ready? He asked gently. Maya took a deep breath, nodding. As ready as I'll ever be. The music began. A string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon, the piece Adrian had chosen because Maya had once mentioned it made her cry at her best friend's wedding years ago. He remembered everything she told him, every small detail, every passing comment. That was how she knew his love was real. Marcus offered his arm, and together they stepped onto the terrace that led to the garden where 250 guests waited. The aisle stretched before her like a white river, lined with thousands of cream roses and white peonies. Guests turned to watch, their faces curious, approving, eager to witness this union. At the far end, beneath an arch woven with flowers and trailing ivy, Adrian stood waiting. He wore a midnight blue tuxedo that made his gray eyes seem to glow, and when those eyes found hers, his entire face transformed with a smile so full of love that Maya felt her breath catch in her throat. She took her first step onto the aisle. And her world exploded into fire. The pain was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. It felt as though she was stepping on burning knives, sharp and immediate, stealing her breath. She gasped audibly, and several guests in the front rows turned with concern. Maya forced herself to take another step, thinking perhaps she had twisted her ankle or the heel had caught on something. But the second step brought the same searing agony in her other foot, and this time she stumbled so hard that Marcus had to grip her arm to keep her upright. Maya, his voice was urgent, alarmed. What's wrong? She looked down and her heart stopped completely. Blood. Dark crimson blood seeping through the ivory silk of the shoes, spreading across the delicate crystal beading, dripping onto the pristine white carpet beneath her feet like scattered rubies. The whispers erupted immediately, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. People pointed, gasped, pulled out phones. Maya could hear fragments of shocked conversation building into a wave of disbelief. She looked up toward Adrian and saw him moving, his expression transforming from joy to something dark and dangerous. He reached her within seconds, dropping to his knees in front of 250 people without hesitation. Maya, stop. Don't take another step. His hands were gentle but urgent as he carefully removed her right shoe. When he turned it over, the collective gasp from the crowd felt like a physical blow. Embedded in the insole, hidden beneath a thin layer of silk fabric, were dozens of razor-thin metal shards, each one positioned deliberately to pierce skin with every step. They glinted in the sunlight like teeth. Adrian's hands came away stained with her blood. He stared at them for a long moment, then stood and turned to face the crowd, holding the bloody shoe high. Nobody moves. His voice carried across the garden, cold and absolute. Nobody leaves this estate. Someone tried to hurt my bride, and I will find out who. Maya felt the world tilting. Sophia appeared beside her, helping her into a chair that someone rushed over. A man in a dark suit, Adrian's head of security, was already speaking into a radio, his voice clipped and efficient. That's when Victoria pushed through the crowd, her face a perfect mask of shock and horror. Oh my God, Maya. Those weren't the shoes we sent. Someone must have switched them. She turned to the gathered guests, her voice rising with theatrical distress. This is sabotage. Someone is trying to destroy this wedding. Diana appeared beside her sister, her expression mirroring the same manufactured shock. We would never, could never, do something like this. Maya, darling, you must believe us. But Adrian wasn't looking at them. He was gesturing sharply to his security team, and within moments they appeared with tablets, already pulling up security footage. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched. Maya watched his mind working, processing, calculating. He had built a tech empire on pattern recognition and data analysis. Whatever he was seeing confirmed something he had already suspected. The medical team arrived, a woman and man from the estate staff with emergency supplies. The woman knelt beside Maya and began carefully removing the left shoe, her face grave. Multiple deep lacerations on both feet, she said quietly, examining the wounds. Metal fragments embedded in several cuts. She began removing the pieces with tweezers, her count climbing higher. 17 fragments total. Placed precisely to cause maximum pain with every step, but positioned to avoid major arteries. Maya heard Sophia crying beside her, felt Marcus's hand gripping her shoulder, but she couldn't look away from Adrian. He had turned to face Victoria and Diana, and something in his expression made both women take an involuntary step backward. "I want your phones," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Both of you. Right now." "That's ridiculous," Patricia said, but her voice shook. "You can't seriously think." "I can, and I do." Adrian pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, a tech team appeared, including specialists carrying equipment Maya had never seen outside of movies. Adrian's company specialized in cybersecurity and digital forensics. "You have two choices," he said. "Hand over your devices voluntarily, or my team extracts the data anyway. You know I have the capability." Victoria actually tried to run. She gathered her designer dress and attempted to push through the crowd, but security was faster. Two men blocked her path without touching her. She spun back around, her composure finally cracking. "You can't do this. I'm family. This is a violation of, you lost the protection of family." Adrian cut her off. "The moment you put razors in my fiancé's shoes." That's when Maya knew. The cold certainty settled into her bones as she watched Victoria's face cycle through emotions: panic, calculation, fury. The tech team worked with terrifying efficiency. Within minutes, they had both phones unlocked and connected to the projection system set up for the ceremony's video displays. The massive screen behind the altar flickered to life, and Maya watched her nightmare become real. Text messages filled the screen, dozens of them, time-stamped over the past month. The guests sat in stunned silence as the evidence unfolded before them. Victoria to Diana, 11:47 p.m. the night before, "The modifications are ready. She'll never make it down the aisle without breaking. Father would be proud." Diana's response: "Perfect. Adrian will see her for the week, common girl she really is. No, Thornfield marries a museum worker with student debt." More messages appeared, each one worse than the last. Conversations about purchasing surgical-grade cutting implements. Discussions about pain thresholds and healing times. A particularly damning exchange about how Maya's humiliation would be captured on camera, shared across social media, ensuring she would never recover from the shame. Victoria to Diana, 3 weeks earlier: "If we can't stop this wedding legally, we'll make sure she destroys it herself. When she falls apart in front of everyone, Adrian will see she's not strong enough for this family." The screen shifted to browser histories. Searches for "how to cause pain without permanent damage," "metal fragments in footwear," "wedding sabotage methods." Credit card receipts showing Victoria's purchase from a medical supply company. Diana's order for replica shoes matching the original design. Maya watched the color drain from both women's faces as their carefully constructed facade crumbled. Several guests were crying now. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The silence was deafening. Then Victoria's mask shattered completely. She lunged toward Maya with such fury that security barely caught her in time. "You don't deserve him," she screamed, her voice raw and venomous. "You're nothing. A nobody from nowhere with your pathetic museum salary and your student loans. We've protected this family's legacy for generations, and I will not watch my brother throw it away on someone so far beneath us." Security held her back, but her words kept coming. "You think you love him? You love his money. You love his name. You're a parasite, and you'll destroy everything we've built." Diana stood frozen, silent tears streaming down her face as the reality of their actions, and consequences, became undeniable. Adrian moved to stand between Victoria and Maya. When he spoke, his voice was ice. "Marcus, call the police. I'm pressing charges for assault, conspiracy, and anything else our attorneys can make stick." "Adrian, please," Diana finally broke, her voice cracking. "We're family. Blood is blood. You can't choose this girl over your own sisters. Adrian looked at both of them with something that might have been grief or might have been relief. I'm choosing the woman I love over people who tried to torture her. There's no universe where that's the wrong choice. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The guests remained seated, witnesses to the complete destruction of the Thornfield family's carefully maintained image. Victoria made one last desperate attempt, her voice shifting to pleading. We were protecting you. Can't you see that? She's using you for your money, your status. We were trying to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. Adrian knelt beside Maya's chair again, his hands gentle on her face. The only mistake would have been not seeing who my real family is. As officers entered the garden and approached Victoria and Diana, reading them their rights, Maya sat with her bandaged feet elevated, surrounded by strangers and the wreckage of what should have been the happiest day of her life. The charges were read aloud: conspiracy to commit assault, aggravated battery, reckless endangerment. Both women would face years in prison. Adrian kissed Maya's forehead gently. I'm so sorry. I should have seen this coming. I knew they resented you, but I never thought, you couldn't have known, Maya whispered, touching his face with trembling fingers that he kissed her palm. What happens now? Now, he said, his voice firm despite the emotion in his eyes, I show you what it means to be truly loved. Not by a family name or a legacy. Just by me. 3 days later, Maya lay in the master bedroom of Adrian's penthouse apartment, her feet elevated on pillows, 23 stitches holding her skin together. The media storm outside was relentless, news vans camped on the street below, helicopters circling, reporters shouting questions whenever anyone entered or exited the building. Billionaire's sisters arrested for wedding day assault dominated every headline. The footage had gone viral, viewed hundreds of millions of times worldwide. Maya's face was everywhere, her pain immortalized in high-definition video. Adrian had barely left her side. He worked from the bedroom, his laptop balanced on his knees, conducting meetings via video while holding her hand. His grandmother Eleanor had moved into the guest room, taking charge of Maya's care with fierce determination. Those girls were always jealous, Eleanor said, changing Maya's bandages with practiced hands. When Adrian's father died and left the company to him instead of them, something broke in Victoria. Diana just followed her lead, like she always did. The doorbell rang, and moments later Marcus appeared with Adrian's attorney, Rebecca Torres. The district attorney wants to offer you an update, Rebecca said, setting her briefcase on the coffee table. Victoria and Diana have been formally charged with conspiracy to commit assault, aggravated battery, and criminal endangerment. Given the premeditation, the evidence, and the public nature of the crime, they're looking at 5 to 8 years each. Maya's stomach turned. Prison. They tried to torture you, Adrian said quietly, his jaw tight. In front of 250 witnesses. They documented their intent in writing. This isn't about revenge, Maya. It's about consequences. Rebecca pulled out another folder. There's more. The board of directors at Thornfield Industries has demanded Adrian distance himself from the scandal. They want him to issue a public statement condemning his sisters but maintaining family unity, protecting the company's image. What did you tell them? Maya asked. Adrian's smile was cold. I told them exactly where they could put their demands. I'm issuing my own statement. I'm severing all business ties with Victoria and Diana, removing them from any advisory positions, and making it clear that anyone who defends their actions has no place in my life or my company. Adrian, your company, will survive, he interrupted gently. Because it's built on innovation and integrity, not family politics. If the board can't accept that, they can resign. The statement went public that evening. Adrian stood before cameras, Maya beside him in a wheelchair, and spoke with absolute clarity. My sisters attempted to torture the woman I love on what should have been the happiest day of our lives. They planned it for weeks, executed it with precision, and showed no remorse when caught. I love my family, but I will not sacrifice my integrity or my future wife's dignity to protect people who would commit such cruelty. Maya Chen is the strongest, most compassionate person I know, and she deserves better than what my sisters gave her. She deserves better than I gave her by not seeing this coming. I'm spending the rest of my life making sure she knows that. The media response was overwhelming. Support poured in from unexpected places. Victims of family betrayal shared their stories. Mental health advocates praised Adrian's courage in choosing his partner over toxic family loyalty, but not everyone approved. Some family friends stopped calling. Distant relatives sent angry emails. Adrian's mother's sister wrote a scathing editorial about turning on family for a stranger. Adrian deleted every message without reading them. Late at night, when Maya couldn't sleep because of the pain, Adrian would carry her to the window and they would look out at the city lights together. "Do you regret it?" she asked one night. "Choosing me over them?" He kissed her temple. "I regret that it took your blood on my hands to show me who they really were. But choosing you? That's the only choice I'll never regret. What if we can't survive this?" Maya whispered. "What if the damage is too deep?" Adrian turned her face to his eyes intense. "Then we'll heal together. One day at a time. One step at a time. Until the scars don't hurt anymore." He kissed her then, gentle and reverent, and Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Not healing exactly, but the beginning of it. The first small seed of hope that. 4 months later, Maya stood in her childhood home's backyard, barefoot in the grass. The November air was crisp, leaves falling like gold around her. The trial had concluded 2 weeks ago, Victoria sentenced to 6 years, Diana to 5, both with mandatory counseling and permanent restraining orders. Adrian had sold the Thornfield estate. "Too many bad memories," he'd said simply. "Let's build new ones instead." The backyard held maybe 30 people. Sophia stood beside Maya as maid of honor. Marcus waited at a simple wooden arch decorated with autumn flowers. And Adrian stood at the end of a path marked with scattered leaves, wearing a simple gray suit, his eyes full of everything Maya needed to know. Eleanor squeezed her hand. "Ready, sweetheart?" Maya looked down at her bare feet, at the thin white scars that traced across her skin like silver threads. The doctors had said the scars would fade but never fully disappear. Maya was glad. She wanted to remember. Wanted to carry the proof of what she'd survived, what they'd survived together. "Ready," she said. She walked slowly, feeling grass and earth beneath her feet, Adrian watching her with tears in his eyes. When she reached him, he took both her hands in his. The ceremony was simple. No elaborate traditions, no family heirlooms, no expectations beyond the promises they made to each other. Maya's vows were short: "I choose you," every day, knowing exactly what that choice costs and means. "You're worth it." Adrian's voice broke as he spoke. "I promise to protect you, not from the world, but by standing beside you as you face it. I promise to choose you, always, above legacy and name and any family that demands you be less than you are. I promise to love your scars because they're proof of your strength." When they kissed, their friends cheered. No massive crowd, no cameras, no performance. Just genuine joy from people who loved them. The reception was held in a nearby restaurant, intimate and warm. People shared stories, laughed, celebrated not just a wedding but a victory over cruelty and betrayal. Late in the evening, Maya and Adrian slipped away to the restaurant's rooftop garden. The city stretched below them, full of light and possibility. "Mrs. Thornfield," Adrian said, pulling her close. "Actually," Maya smiled, "I'm keeping Chen. Maybe we both can be Chen Thornfield." He laughed, the sound free and genuine. "Perfect. Let's both be something new." They stood there together, two people who had walked through fire and chosen each other anyway. Maya's feet still ached sometimes, especially when it rained. The nightmares still came occasionally, dreams of blood and betrayal. But Adrian was always there when she woke, solid and real, reminding her that she was safe. A year later, they stood in the same backyard for a different celebration. Adrian's company had launched a new initiative, a foundation supporting survivors of family violence and betrayal, funded by the sale of the Thornfield estate. Maya had taken a position as the foundation's director, using her experience to help others navigate their own journeys from victim to survivor. Eleanor, now 93, held their newborn daughter, a tiny girl with Adrian's gray eyes and Maya's determined chin. "What are you going to name her?" Sophia asked, cooing at the baby. Maya and Adrian exchanged a look. They'd discussed this for months, considering family names and fresh starts. "Hope," Maya said finally. "Hope Eleanor Thornfield." Because that's what they'd built together from the ashes of that terrible day. Not just survival, but genuine hope. Not just healing, but transformation. Not just a love story, but a testament to the truth that sometimes the families we choose matter more than the ones we're born into. Adrian kissed Maya's forehead as they watched their friends and chosen family gathered around them, celebrating not what they'd lost but what they'd built in its place. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For not giving up. On us. On love. On the possibility that broken things can heal into something even stronger." Maya leaned into him, feeling the warmth of the setting sun on her face, the soft grass beneath her forever scarred feet, the solid reality of a man who had chosen her above everything else. "We healed together," she said simply. "That's what love does." And in that backyard, surrounded by people who truly loved them, with their daughter sleeping peacefully in her great-grandmother's arms, Maya Thornfield finally understood what her wedding day should have taught her all along. True love isn't about grand gestures or family legacies or perfect ceremonies. It's about choosing each other, every single day, even when, especially when, that choice costs everything.